In 2021, Marvel released What If, an animated anthology series built on one idea.
Changed in a way you'd never forget.
T'Challa!
What if the heroes you knew became something larger than life?
Infinite possibilities. Every story ever told, retold differently. Every decision unmade. And fans had one problem with it. They kept picking the wrong ones. Here's the context. What If Season 1 dropped on Disney Plus in August 2021. 9 episodes, animated, multiverse anthology. The concept on paper was genuinely exciting because for the first time, Marvel could go anywhere. No budget constraints, no actor availability, just pure storyline possibility. And some of it landed. The zombie episode was fun. What if T'Challa became Star-Lord was genuinely moving, especially after Chadwick Boseman's passing. But fans were frustrated. And the frustration wasn't really about quality, it was about choices. The show opened with Captain Carter. Peggy gets the serum instead of Steve. And look, it's a fine episode, but as an opener for a series with infinite possibilities, it felt safe. And as the season went on, fans started noticing a pattern. The stories Marvel kept choosing were detached, fun, alternate universe scenarios, but rarely the ones that hit the nerve. Because the what if moments fans actually wanted explored the ones that kept Reddit threads alive for years, where the ones closest to the main timeline, the near misses, the one decision that almost broke everything. And the internet had a very clear list. So, fellow watchers, let's explore the possibilities. I want to be upfront about something with this episode that I haven't been in a very long time. I wasn't just watching this conversation from the outside. Back in 2021, I made my own version of some of these concepts. What if the other half got snapped? Over 2 million views. What if Star-Lord didn't punch Thanos? 6 million views. And both of those came directly from what I was seeing fans talk about online. The ideas were already there. The internet had already written them. I just put them on the screen at the right time, which tells you everything about what this episode is really about. The fan version of What If wasn't hypothetical. It already existed. It just never made it into the actual show. So let's bring those voices into this video. The reaction to episode 1 was imminent. On Reddit, one post summed up what a lot of people were feeling. In Marvel's What If, anything can happen just as long as it involves Captain Carter. And that one line said everything. The AV Club put it more directly in their review at the time, noting that Marvel seemed almost desperate to push Captain Carter as the face of the multiverse, which is fine, she's a great character, but fans weren't turning into an infinite multiverse show to watch. But fans weren't tuning into an infinite multiverse show to watch, a version of a story they've already seen. That word kept appearing in threads in all seasons. Dangerous. Fans wanted What If to feel dangerous, to go somewhere they didn't expect, to make them genuinely uncomfortable. Captain Carter didn't do that, and that set the wrong tone for what was supposed to be the most limitless show Marvel had ever made. So what did fans actually want? Because this is where it gets interesting. The internet didn't just complain about this, it built an entire alternate season. Take the Thor question, one of the most debated moments in the entire MCU. On the What If subreddit, a thread asked the simplest version of it. What if Thor actually aimed for the head on the Statesman. User Devalland answered in 5 words. Thanos would have died. End of story. And u/Planet God 74 followed. It would have killed him. Threat over. And that's the point, and also where it gets a little bit more interesting, because that sounds like a happy ending. Thor wins, no snap, everyone lives, but the more you pull on that thread, the more complicated it becomes. No snap means no 5-year gap, no Scott Lang in the quantum realm. No time heist, no Tony cracking time travel in a cabin. Thanos dies on the Statesman, and now 6 stones are just sitting there in space with no plans. Is that world actually safer, or does it just become a different kind of dangerous? That is the episode. Not the moment Thor wins, but everything that comes afterwards. And then there's a concept that I think represents the fan version of What If better than anything else. What if Thanos snapped, but the other half? Tony, Steve, Thor, gone. And the people who survived the original snap, the ones left behind, are now the ones who have to figure out how to fix it. I made my own version of this on New Year's in 2021, and it hit over 2 million views. Not because I came up with something genuine, but because the idea had been living in fan discussions long before I even put it on screen, and before everyone else put it on screen. The dramatic weight of this is enormous. No Avengers safety net. No time heist without Tony. Just a broken group of people trying to figure things out on the fly. And that's the kind of story What If was built to tell, but kept stepping around. And then there's the one fans couldn't let go, even though they understood why it happened. Spider-Man isn't in What If. Not really. And fans noticed immediately. Because Spider-Man's entire mythology is What If. Every version of his story is built on one decision going differently. Uncle Ben, Gwen Stacy, The Snap, No Way Home. The show built to explore exactly those questions, and it couldn't touch them. Time magazine covered the Sony and Marvel rights situation directly, documenting how the split between the studios created real creativity limitations for how Spider-Man could appear across Marvel's Multiverse projects, which means the absence wasn't an oversight, it was a consequence. And fans felt it. Every episode that explored the multiverse without the character whose story is the multiverse felt like something was missing, because something was missing. Here's what connects all of these videos. Fans didn't want What If to be a fun side trip. They wanted it to matter. The episodes that landed, T'Challa as Star-Lord, the zombies, Doctor Strange losing Christine, landed because they committed fully to the premise. They went somewhere real. The frustration wasn't about animation or budget or even specific episode choices. It was about a show that had permission to break everything, and sometimes chose not to. The fan version of What If that was living in Reddit threads and on internet threads and on Twitter, YouTube videos, and comment sections was darker, more connected, more willing to hurt. It asked the questions that were hardest to ask. What if the Avengers were too late from the very beginning? What if the moment that changed everything had gone the other way? Those aren't fun alternate timelines. They're the questions fans had been sitting with for years now. So if the internet had written What If Season 1, what does that actually look like? Here's the version that emerges from the room of voices. You still open with something accessible, but not Captain Carter. You open with what if Thanos snapped in 2012, right in the middle of the first Avengers battle. The team barely formed and now they've already lost. Cold, immediate. Tells the audience in episode 1, nothing is safe here. Episode 2, what if Thor went for the head? Except the episode isn't about victory, it's about what happens in the silence after. 6 stones, no plan. A world that survived but doesn't know what to do with that. Episode 3, what if the other half got snapped? Tony, Steve, Thor, gone. The others left behind have to figure out how to be the Avengers without the Avengers. Episode 4. What if Star-Lord didn't punch Thanos? They get the gauntlet off, Thanos dies on Titan, and Peter Quill has to live with not trying to bring Gamora back for the rest of his life. And then mid-season, you do something unexpected. A quiet episode. What if Tony Stark survived in Avengers Endgame? Not an action story, just Tony Stark trying to figure out who he is when he doesn't get the clean ending. No Spider-Man because you can't, but you build the season in a way where his absence is almost felt between episodes, where the audience knows there's a gap in the multiverse that should be filled. You end the season with something that connects all of these timelines together. The audience realizes all these broken worlds are running parallel. The multiverse isn't a fun concept in this version. It's a reminder of everything that almost went differently. That's the fan version of What If. Not a replacement for What If Marvel made, but the version that was living online the entire time the show was airing. What if season 2 and 3 exist now? Marvel kept going, which means the conversation isn't over. There are still What If episodes sitting on the internet threads and YouTube comments that haven't been made yet. So, I want yours. Drop in the comments the What If episode you always wanted to see. The one Marvel never made. The one that's been living in your head since 2021, or longer than that, because this room of voices doesn't close when the video ends. The Watchers of the Multiverse